Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Max Talk Movies. And today we have our very first ranking video. And today I've been rewatching all of the Batman live action films that will be reviewed here in this review. There are currently 10 movies that I'll be talking about. I did not watch the Adam West one. So on this channel, I'll be talking about the 2 Tim Burton, the 2 Joel Schumacher films, the 3 Christopher Nolan movies, the Lego Batman movie, and Batman v Superman, and Justice League. Those are the 10 movies that will be on this list from 10 to 1. This will be a longer video, so stay tuned if you want your favorites to be in the top. If you like videos like rankings, movie reviews, TV reviews, streaming platform reviews, think about clicking that subscribe button, clicking that like button. Also, ring the bell for the notifications on whatever new content. I'm pushing out a lot of new content, especially heading into this weekend. And if you guys are interested in more rankings of your favorite superheroes, your favorite movies, whatever you want to talk about, leave a comment down below and I'll be doing those rankings in the foreseeable future. So now, because it's a long video, let's get started. So for me, coming in at number 10 is easily Batman and Robin, starring George Clooney, Chris O'Donnell, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Uma Thurman here. This movie for me is just bad. It's probably the worst superhero movie, in my opinion, of all time. And it doesn't work on a lot of levels. First of all, it feels like George Clooney was the perfect person to play Batman. He was also in his prime at the time of making this film. And it was coming off of Batman Forever, which I'm going to talk about very soon here. But Clooney feels like, especially Bruce Wayne, just perfect casting. And he just didn't bring it to the table. I don't think his Batman works at all. And he really couldn't distinguish his Batman and Bruce Wayne. That's the thing that Batman actors that we'll talk about later nail, is the difference between their Bruce Wayne persona and their Batman persona. It just seemed like George Clooney was being George Clooney in the Batman suit and as Bruce Wayne. Chris O'Donnell, for me, continues to struggle. He's even worse here than he was in Batman Forever. Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I'm a diehard Arnold fan, completely miscast here as Mr. Freeze. He's just saying one-liners and puns the whole movie, and it's not that great. Uma Thurman's character doesn't really make a whole lot of sense on why she understands her powers that quickly. So the movie as a whole doesn't work. I think the score, though, is pretty good, especially in these. Elliot Goldenthal did the score for the Joel Schumacher films. I think his score gets not as much talked about because of the level of movie that you're watching. Also, Gordon is used pretty bad in this movie. There's also a storyline here in Batman and Robin in which Alfred is dying and about to die, but at the end of the movie, George Clooney gets the cure, I guess, and he's cured in less than a day. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense. Also, as I continue, guys, if you haven't seen any of these movies, these will be spoiler dives into all of these movies. So that's a spoiler warning for every Batman movie that will be on this list. So easily number 10 is Batman and Robin. Coming in at number 9, ladies and gentlemen, is Batman Forever. This is the first Joel Schumacher Batman film with Val Kilmer in the lead role as Batman, Chris O'Donnell, his debut as Robin, and we had the villains of the Riddler, played by Jim Carrey, Two-Face by Tommy Lee Jones, and we also had a love interest played by Nicole Kidman in this movie. And for me, this is just meh. But I give it like a 2-star out of 5. I think the movie is definitely below average, but it has some really solid points. As a whole, I think Val Kilmer is the most bland Batman we've gotten and the most bland Bruce Wayne. Like, he's serviceable in the role. He's not doing anything special or great in the role, but he also isn't doing anything awful like Clooney did in the next film in the Joel Schumacher franchise. And I also thought that I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan, one of the biggest ones, but he, for me, is way too annoying in Batman Forever. They're just giving him one-liners from all of his movies. Obviously, this was Jim Carrey literally in his prime while he was doing Ace Ventura and all these other different things. But for me, his character doesn't work. It's also the same type of villain we see in most superhero movies where he's in love. He really loves the superhero, but the superhero turns him down, and then he becomes a supervillain. It doesn't work. Tommy Lee Jones is pretty bad here as Two-Face. The CGI doesn't work, and the reason why he's going after Batman also doesn't really make a lot of sense. Robin, on the other hand, while Chris O'Donnell isn't giving a great performance, his backstory actually works for the fact that his his family basically dies doing that circus performance, and Tommy Lee Jones kills them, but he's the one left alive, and he's forced upon Bruce Wayne. And that, for me, does work. And that emotional point really works because he didn't see any of it. He saved everyone, but he doesn't feel like the hero. I do like that. As well, Alfred is good in here. Nicole Kidman is good in here, but didn't feel like Nicole Kidman was a necessary character in the film. Overall, I gave it a 2 out of 5. It's a pretty meh movie with below average acting. Not a bad Batman, but not a good Batman either. And now I'll move us into the number 8 spot, and that is where I have Justice League. So Justice League is number 8. I am just not I really hated the movie. The first 2 times I watched it once in theaters and once when it came right away. And I hated it. I think that I really hated Batman v Superman and Justice League on first watches. But since I've really this rewatch that I did actually 2 nights ago of Justice League, I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I did before. Still not a good movie, but it's still, I enjoyed it. There's a lot of parts that I enjoy a lot more in this film. I also think the casting here in this Justice League movie is really great. Obviously, Affleck and Godot and Cavill returned, but I think Momoa's debut as Aquaman has really worked. And I think he works better here than he does in his own movie, especially that one joke where he doesn't know he's wrapped around the lasso of truth and he's just spurting out stuff. That's my favorite scene we've gotten so far of Momoa as Aquaman. I actually really do enjoy Ezra Miller as the Flash in this movie. But Ray Fisher, who I hated first, actually, when I watched it again, gives actually a really good performance as Cyborg. I think Cyborg is easily the weakest character in the film. You don't really get what he's actually doing the whole reason. And he's just basically telling everyone that he has to talk to this device and everyone else do the fighting. And for me, it never really clicked. Cyborg is definitely the weakest part of the movie. Also, there isn't enough of Lois Lane or Martha Kent in this movie. Obviously, Superman barely in the movie. And also, Steppenwolf is a very weak villain, just a big CGI villain. You don't really care. You don't really feel like he's a force that will destroy the Justice League. And he wasn't really like that in the comics either, but it definitely doesn't translate over to film as well. Affleck, for me, who is doing a good job in the role, is a completely different character than he was in Batman versus Superman, and that was a little bit disappointing. And he's much more of a jerk in this movie. You're not really rooting for Batman. You don't really get his perspective on why he keeps going after Wonder Woman. Now you get it that she needs to be the leader, but Batman for me just a little too on the nose of being a bit of a jerk to Wonder Woman throughout the film as well. So overall, I think I'm really pumped to see the Snyder Cut because you can definitely tell the reshoots, and this film also does not have great CGI. So to really see Zack Snyder's film compared to this is mostly, it feels like a Joss Whedon film. I'm really pumped to see the Snyder Cut, and that will be coming on HBO Max in 2021. And here's my first controversial pick here so far, and that is number 7, and that is going to be Batman Returns, Tim Burton's second try at the Batman films. And for me, now I think this is probably the most overhyped Batman film that we've got. A lot of people love this movie. I actually have heard people say that Batman Returns is better than the original, and rewatching it once again, I've seen this movie a lot. And for me, this was the worst I think the film is for me on rewatches. The problem that Tim Burton, this problem that this movie compared to the 89 film, that this film is definitely just a Tim Burton film. While the first film, and I'll talk about it in a bit, how that was a mix of a Batman movie and a Tim Burton style. This for me was just a Tim Burton movie, and you can definitely feel how weird this is. Now, the performances are really good here. Keaton once again delivers in the lead role, and Michelle Pfeiffer and Dan DeVito, who are on screen behind me right now, they completely destroy their roles. Really well done. And you give them a reason why Danny DeVito is in their position. I think he's definitely the main villain of the movie. There was a romance now put into this movie after Vicky Vale, for some reason, couldn't come back for this movie. They have now Batman in a love interest with Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, and that doesn't really work. That's one of the big issues I have with the movie, that love relationship never works. I also think Christopher Walken's character is very, very on the nose about his motives in the film. Also, Batman seems like, even though the first film, even the first Batman with Tim Burton really is a Joker movie with Batman in it. This movie completely feels like Batman is a supporting character in the movie. The first 10 to 15 minutes of the movie is backstory on Penguin. And then the next scene we get is Catwoman's backstory. And then we get Batman. We don't really get Batman until the mayor, Christopher Walken's doing that speech. And that doesn't happen until 20, 25 minutes into the movie. So I think this movie suffers a lot more than the first one because Batman isn't in the movie as much as I would have liked. That's my issue with basically the Tim Burton movies, that Batman seems like too much of a supporting character because Tim Burton is in love with these crazy oddball villains as well. So I think Batman Returns, also Danny Elfman comes back and delivers a really good score here. Also wanted to add to that Justice League one that Danny Elfman gave also a great score in Justice League, adding his Batman's theme. But for me, Michael Keaton delivers a weird romance. Also, Dan DeVito doesn't really work in the becoming the possible mayor of the town. And no one thinks that is wrong. Definitely doesn't really help. But his backstory is really good, that he was left behind. But in general, his third act ending is not that great. And Catwoman, while great, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense on why she has these tendencies to be a cat. Other than that, though, I think this is a pretty average movie and the most overrated movie in the Batman franchise. Now coming in number 6 for me is Batman v Superman. Now people hate this movie or people love this movie. And for me, I was always on the side of hating this movie. I'm not a huge Ben Affleck fan. And when I watched this, I always looked at it, this is not my Batman. And it still isn't my Batman, but it is a great Batman in my opinion. Ben Affleck delivers my favorite Ben Affleck performance actually in this movie. On rewatch, I actually really enjoyed the movie, and this movie became above average to me. While the movie is 2.5 hours, it never feels like it's 2.5 hours, and that is a testament to our lead two characters here, Ben Affleck, who delivers a really good Batman performance because Batman in this movie, compared to Justice League, is very well written. The fact that his perspective of the ending of Man of Steel is really powerful, that you really understand why Batman would want to go after Superman in the movie, and why while in his eyes, Superman is the villain. So I think that point of view is great. Lois Lane, Amy Adams is really good in this movie. And of course, the warehouse scene is one of the best Batman scenes we've ever gotten before. The problem with, obviously, was hold this movie back, and it sucks to say, but it is Jesse Eisenberg, ex-Lex Luthor. I'm a huge Jesse Eisenberg fan, and this is the only performance that I really can't stand of his. He just takes you out of the movie. His Lex Luthor performance is really bad. He's written very poorly, and at times he kind of fades away towards the third act. You don't understand why his plan doesn't really work out for his benefit, other than he definitely does kill Superman, but he goes to prison at the end, and then you don't see him until the post-credit scene of Justice League. So Jesse Eisenberg, for me, very rushed, very predictable what happens with his storyline in the movie, because really the first 25, 30 minutes are actually some fantastic action scenes, fantastic stuff going on. When I watched it, I was like, wow, this is a great movie. And then once he pops on the screen, it definitely turns down this film. It is above average in my opinion. But for me, Lex Luthor definitely bears on it. And this movie has a lot more better, memorable scenes than I would say Batman Returns. And that's why I have this film above Batman Returns. So now let's move into our top five Batman movies of all time. Could be controversial, might not be. Number 5 for me is The Dark Knight Rises. This is the conclusion of the Christopher Nolan trilogy with Christian Bale as Batman with Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, Bane played by Tom Hardy. Now, I remember when I watched this for the first time absolutely loving it, to a fact that I actually put this movie above Batman Begins on my original ranking when I first watched the film 8 years ago. But on rewatches for me, this film, while I think it's an extremely solid movie, I feel like it gets worse for me on rewatches. I pick up new things that I don't really get about this film, but the performances certainly are the strongest part. Bane as Tom Hardy's perfect casting, and you really understand that Bane can really dominate Batman. He pretty much dominates Batman the whole entire movie. Catwoman, for me, while Anne Hathaway is actually giving a really good performance, isn't really necessary, in my opinion, in this film. And And Bane being the villain, though, is really strong. Christian Bale, once again, dominates as Batman. In my opinion, the best Batman that we have gotten so far. Michael Caine and their breakup in the first act was really powerful, and you get why Michael Caine as Alfred needs to leave him. But for me, the reason why this film completely falls flat for me, especially in the third act, is the twist that Marion Cotillard, who is Miranda Tate, turned out to be Ra's al Ghul's daughter at the end of the movie. And for me, that twist never worked. I used to hate her as Miranda Tate and Talia al Ghul. Now I just hate her as Talia al Ghul. The Miranda Tate performance actually is pretty solid from Cotillard. But once she turns bad, her performance, I don't know what happened to her acting, but it completely falls flat. And her death is really poorly acted. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is also in this movie, and he is really good. I love his character, but the fact that they tack on Robin at the end for me was not necessary. I like that he was just a nobody. And I guess that's what Robin is. But for me, with this movie, it didn't feel like we needed a Robin-like character in the film. And also, they leave two characters on the sidelines for the most of the movie, and I didn't like that. Obviously, Alfred is only in the first 20 minutes, and he shows up the last 10 minutes. That was pretty disappointing. And Gary Oldman, obviously, once he goes into the hospital, he's in the hospital for most of the film. And it was not cool to see Gordon left on the sidelines. Matthew Modine, not a good character at all in this movie. But the movie executes what it's asking for, and that's epic. The film is one of the most epic films I've ever seen. But the film is way too long. It ticks in at 2 hours and 45 minutes. And that is the longest Batman movie we have ever gotten so far. And it definitely feels like it. At times, I think some of the timeline stuff for me doesn't work, but the movie has some great acting, amazing direction from Nolan, great score from Zimmer, but it can't go into my top 4. It actually was in my top 4 today, but then I moved it right before I filmed this, so that's where on my back and forth here. My number 4 is the Lego Batman movie. Now, I didn't really love this movie the first time I watched it. I think Batman is my favorite character in the Lego films, and I did watch Lego Movie and Lego Movie 2 in preparation for this video, so I get the full thing here of Batman, but I am just judging the Lego Batman movie on its own. So for me, I really love this movie to death. I think this is definitely the funniest film out of these movies. It's the one that doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever, but I forgot how much heart was in this movie, and upon rewatch, I really gave a damn about Bruce Wayne in this movie. The fact that they go about themes about abandonment, what it means to have a family, and his relationship with Robin, who is voiced here by Michael Cera, really worked because Michael Cera is the complete opposite of Batman. Batman's a very dark character who's lonely, but Robin's, on the other hand, is super childish but super happy, and he just wants that family relationship. Alfred also gets into the action in this movie. I actually enjoy Joker. Zach Galifianakis isn't really killing it in the voice acting, but his comedic timing and the fact that Joker just wants to be acknowledged as the true villain to Batman is really interesting in this movie. It definitely hits that in The Dark Knight that they both need each other. But they're not saying that if I can't fight unless you're not here. In this movie, it does, and that was really great to see. I love that Commissioner Gordon's daughter, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, is in the movie as well. Their relationship is really great. And the fact that Batman needs a team. It feels like Justice League was kind of forced in, like he's going to just start the team. Here, it feels like he needs a team to accomplish the goal of the film. And that was really fun to see. Will Arnett kills it voice acting as the Lego Batman. And I love this movie. Now, the reason why I have is percentage-wise the same as The Dark Knight Rises. The reason why I love this movie more than Dark Knight Rises is that there's not a lot of stuff that I'm annoyed at. Yes, all the jokes don't work because they go for literally every single joke. But for me, Dark Knight Rises had a lot more glaring issues than the Lego Batman movie. So for me, the Lego Batman movie easily comes in here at number 4. Number 3 is the original Batman 1989 Tim Burton movie with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. I really like this movie. I can't say I love this movie. I used to really love this movie, but on rewatch, I have moved it down to number 3. I think Keaton kills it, but this really is Joker's movie played by Jack Nicholson. And you forget, because of what Heath Ledger does in The Dark Knight, how great of a performance this was by Jack Nicholson. My main issue with Batman 89 is the fact of there's a lot of pacing issues. At times, Tim Burton, obviously, as he should, takes Batman very seriously. And then you go on to Jack Nicholson, and it feels like he's in the right movie. He's the one just being completely over the top, and the back and forth at times works, but also at times doesn't click all the time. Also think Vicky Vale is not that great in this movie. Kim Basinger is good, but it was a very rushed romance after one date. She's already saying I love you to Keaton in this movie, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but Michael Keaton is really good, especially as Batman. And what's cool about this movie is that the first scene, he's already Batman. So this movie really is Joker's movie. It's Joker's origin, how he falls into the acid and becomes the Joker. Batman's already Batman in the first scene. And I actually like that take for Tim Burton. I would have liked a little more Batman, but I think the movie still nails. It's a great nostalgic feel. Jack Nicholson steals the movie, easily the strongest part of the film. But it does knock it down from the top two, which for me are premier superhero movies. This still is a good movie. Number 2 is Batman Begins. For me, again, as I said earlier, I've been moving this up and down my whole life. I remember thinking this was a very forgettable movie the first time I watched it because I just loved my number 1 movie, and I actually really loved The Dark Knight Rises over this growing up. And now on rewatches now, this is definitely a better movie than The Dark Knight Rises, and a pretty picture-perfect movie. Bale gives, in my opinion, his best performance because this is really his backstory movie. Once you get to The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, he's already Batman. You're really trying to learn about the villains. Here, you learn about how he joins the League of Shadows, why he leaves, why he wants to save Gotham, his parents' death really affecting him. And none of the other Batman movies hinted about this storyline. Now, yes, in the Tim Burton one, they say Jack Nicholson's Joker killed him, but that didn't really make a lot of sense. Batman and Forever did show the fact that Batman's parents died and how that affected Val Kilmer's Batman, but this movie really dives into Batman's parents' death, and that was really great to see. Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, Liam Neeson, Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow. I mean, it's all just fantastic stuff in here. Great origin story. It isn't my favorite superhero origin story, but for me, it's in top 5 for me, superhero origin stories. I mean, it's the only thing people think about Batman and Robin, that we didn't have that bad of a movie. Maybe we wouldn't get a serious reboot of Batman with Christopher Nolan. And also, this movie just completely changed the game for superhero movies on how you feel about superhero movies. They used to be cartoons, really just over-the-top movies. And this movie took itself so seriously, but took itself seriously in a great way, in a very realistic way, where you think Batman could exist in our world. And that's what Christopher Nolan absolutely nails. Newton Howard and Zimmer give an amazing score, a very powerful ending with Bale and Neeson on the train and Gary Oldman blowing up the train itself as well. The thing that obviously drops us back for me is the Katie Holmes effect. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal, and I'll explain it in this with my number 1. Maggie Gyllenhaal was a much better Rachel than Katie Holmes, and Katie Holmes for me is not a great actress, and she does not work in Batman Begins. So that takes it down, but for me, it's a 4.5. It's still a fantastic movie, a great way to start the Nolan trilogy, and it set up my number 1, and also not just my favorite number 1 movie on the Batman list, not just my number 1 superhero movie of all time, but my favorite, I think, best movie of all time, and that's Dark Knight. I've seen this movie a million times. It's a picture-perfect movie for me. It's a perfect film. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's the best opening scene we've ever gotten in a Batman movie. And I also think we get the greatest performance in cinema history. Heath Ledger being the Joker is just unbelievably good and is way better than Heath Ledger. I mean, better than Jack Nicholson, because while he's still over the top, you take him so seriously. His plan always works. The stuff he's saying, other than his scar explanation, is true in this movie, and the way he turns Harvey Dent is just fantastic. And I loved seeing that. I think there's 2 performances, though, that are forgotten with this movie, and that's one, Gary Oldman, who does a great job as Commissioner Gordon in all 3 movies, but here he does a great performance of that fake death thing, coming back and getting Joker amazing. And also Aaron Eckhart, he plays the White Knight at first, which is Harvey Dent, and then he turns into Two-Face And it was a really powerful twist because the whole point of this movie is that Joker can turn anyone, the goodest of good, which is Harvey Dent, into a bad guy. It just shows you how powerful he is. This movie has an amazing score. There's so many memorable scenes. Hong Kong is a great, great scene of Batman retrieving Lau. Rachel and Rachel's death is really powerful in the way that hits Batman. And the third act itself is really powerful in the way that Harvey starts cutting off all the cops who blew up Rachel and himself. And then Batman saves Harvey's legacy, basically. He kills Harvey Dent, but also preserves his legacy because he is the White Knight of Gotham and Batman is the Dark Knight. My favorite movie of all time. That'll do for me here on my Batman movie ranking. That is 10 Batman movies through 1. If you have a Batman ranking of your own, put it down in the description below. If you want to include the Adam West Batman, if you want to include the animated movies other than the Lego Batman movie, if you want to include Joker or Suicide Squad as well, or the 2 Lego movies, also put that in the description below. I want to see your rankings. Do we agree? Do we disagree? Let's do it in a lively, nice manner. As well, I have a couple videos upcoming. This Friday, I have a new Netflix movie that I'll be reviewing here on this channel, as well as The Politician Season 2 drops on Netflix this Friday. I'll be reviewing that, hopefully getting it done by Saturday or Sunday to review on this channel. If you guys are also interested in other rankings, do you want me to see you rank Star Wars, Mission Impossible, any Pixar, DreamWorks animation, anything of those sorts, Superman movies, whatever you want us to do, also leave that in the comment section below, and I will be doing those rankings as soon as I can as well. I've been doing Batman because I've been rewatching it for the past really 2 weeks now for this video. Really happy for all the support. We're getting a lot of subscribers now. Don't forget, if you really enjoyed this video and you enjoy movie reviews, streaming platform reviews, and TV series reviews, hit that subscribe and also hit that ring the bell for notifications, and give me a like here on this video. The more you guys do to support the channel, the bigger and better we become. I want to thank you guys for joining me on my movie rankings of the Batman movies. There will be more movie rankings to come. All the stuff, all the videos like this will be popping up on my head next. Also hit that subscribe button while you're still here. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys on Friday.